Hey everyone, today's guest is Allie Egan, founder and CEO of Veracity, a science-backed metabolic health company on a mission to rewrite the weight management category. Allie's journey started with her own battle against an undiagnosed thyroid disorder, which led her to functional medicine and ultimately reversing her condition without prescriptions. We dig into two powerful trends she's seeing in wellness: the fashionization of supplements, where branding often outshines efficacy, and Deprescriptionization, the growing movement to solve health issues rather than rely on lifelong medication. You'll hear how Allie pivoted Veracity from a broad hormone testing business to a single hero product, Metabolism Ignite, fueling breakout growth, attracting Tier 1 investors via a Series A this year, and positioning the brand as a natural alternative to GLP-1 drugs. Welcome to In the Money, an exploration of whether you can still make money in D2C and CPG. We talk to some of the most interesting $5 million to $50 million founders, operators, investors, acquirers, and lenders in the space to ultimately answer the question, is D2C and CPG still a good business? Hope you'll enjoy the show. Allie, so in pre-recording, you were educating me on two fascinating trends in the health and wellness space. On the one side, you called it the fashionization of supplements. On the other side, the deprescriptionization, and how Veracity kind of sits at the intersection of these two macro consumer trends. Maybe elaborate on that for us.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me, and I'm super excited to talk about this. But on the fashionization side, obviously, we can see it in all the consumer data. About 80% of people are taking supplements daily. That's, so many people. And I think if you see this emergence from these heritage VMS brands, the Thorns, Metagenics, et cetera, of the world to more of the, D2C focused consumer brands, the majority of them, I would say, are taking this very much fashionization of supplements. And what do I mean by that? I mean, they do a really great job in investing in a brand that, is either tied to a celebrity or a spokesperson or, some kind of theme. They create great packaging, great online experience, etc. But they are not actually developing usually proprietary product, or real science around it. They are just more of like coming out with whatever is hot that season, because obviously health and wellness has, exploded. And so, right now creatine is everything that people are talking about, right? So as you create a great brand, creatine is hot. Let me sell you creatine. Next it's glutathione. So I'm going to make a glutathione, but you're kind of this collection of things that are just changing haphazardly based on whatever is trending. And then, how we think about that separately is, yes, you will, as a business, you will capture market share, because if the demand is high for creatine or magnesium or whatever, and you create a nice brand, you're going to maybe get some people to convert on Amazon and other things. But ultimately, this is a product category where you are trying to develop habits and longevity. And so what does that mean? That means the product actually needs to perform. And that means you need to have efficacy and trust in the space. And so, we're kind of taking an opposite approach of very focused on the area of metabolic health and not getting into the fashionization or seasonal, or as you see in the beauty category, sort of the quarterly launches where these companies are addicted to it. What we're playing more into is as you mentioned, the deprescription trends. So, and what that means is, typically, for a lot of health-focused things, what have people done historically? They've gone to their doctor, right? And what is the something which you think is the ultimate in personalization, right? Like, I'm going to a physical person who's going to give just me advice, has turned out for many, many people not to be personalized at all. You meet with someone for 5 minutes, you kind of tell them the direct symptoms that you're having. They give you a prescription and see you again, maybe in 6 months, maybe never, especially if it's these kind of online, platforms, telehealth platforms. And I think you've seen this emergence of course, we all like quick fixes, but that people are really trying to are noticing that these drugs are not solving the issues permanently. Either they're forced to take them indefinitely, or they're kind of bouncing from thing to thing. And they're really looking for different solutions. And that's where this deprescription comes in. How do I actually get to the problem? And the data is incredible across different categories of this. So, you see it, I think, most acutely in female birth control pill. The usages of that are down almost 50%. And it's because people are finally trying to say, I don't want to use this as my crutch forever. And that's where we think our brand and our product comes in, where, we quote unquote compete with GLP-1s, but we're really offering an option that works differently by addressing root cause metabolic health function. And we can both market that product to people who want to avoid prescriptions entirely, aren't candidates for, or maybe have tried a prescription, either had success or not, and are looking to not be reliant on that for the long term.
There's so much to dive into on both of those sides. The fashionization component, let's start there. It's been interesting seeing maybe the way that I've observed this trend and the backlash is that there've been some more takedowns online of, hey, there's actually very little efficacy in this, or hey, there's not actually even that much creatine in this gummy that I'm supposed to be taking. Do you think that consumers today are more skeptical, or, how does that kind of play out in the next few years?
Yes, there has been a lot of snake oil in this space. And I think people are really hopeful. Like, look, people understand much more inherently now that I have problems, I got to fix it on the inside, right? That's kind of how almost wellness has taken over the world of beauty, right? However, they've also notice that there's kind of people selling things that are too good to be true. Just go on Amazon and look at, some of the top selling products, and it'll, pretend like it's going to solve every one of your ailments in one day. And so when we think about, trust from that component, like, natural products do work differently than narcotics, for example. And like, part of what we do is educate on how powerful they can be when formulated correctly, but how they're also different, right? And it's not about quick fixes, but actually about retraining your body to work in the right way. And what you see with this fashionization of supplements kind of category is they're less focused on that efficacy. And what that leads to is what is often sort of cosmetic labeling, and which is exactly what you said, where, they're not studying actual clinical dosage. So just because, vitamin C or B6 has some proven clinical effects, if you're including 25% of the clinically studied dosage, that does not mean that you're going to get any or even a degree of the same benefit. The other big thing is when companies take a few different clinically studied ingredients and put them together and are, assuming that like there's some synergy there, or that they even actually work together, where, we're products and our bodies are sort of a series of chemical reactions, and we don't know how those things are going to react until we do the experiment.
AI. Everyone's talking about it, and you're worried you're getting left behind. Meet RichPanel, an AI-first customer support platform that's built for one thing: making support faster, smarter, and cheaper for e-commerce brands. Something you can actually feel smarter about using. RichPanel combines a unified inbox across email, chat, and socials, a customizable self-service portal that customers actually use, and Sidekick AI, powered by GPT-4, which learns from your past tickets to suggest on-brand replies. Does it actually work? Well, with RichPanel's guarantee, you get guaranteed 30% cost savings when you switch from Zendesk or Gorgeous, 30% automation to reduce your ticket volume, and a no-risk guarantee that if RichPanel doesn't deliver those results in 60 days, you get a full refund. That's why top brands like Ridge Wallet, Jones Road Beauty, and Pella Cases are already using RichPanel to save hundreds of thousands in support costs. Time to start letting AI work for you. Head to richpanel.com and start your free trial today. Real savings, real automation, real AI that actually works. And then on the other side, the deprescription, the GLP-1 injection business seems like it's a great business because, and a lot of the times it works, and even better, it's got the LTV of the full life. But similarly, now people are concerned of, well, if I stop taking this, it's going to stop working. Do I really need to be injecting for the rest of my life? Have you been able to benefit from kind of that shift?
Yeah, well, first of all, even the data is very clear that people aren't using, even though they're supposed to use these drugs forever, they're not. Like less than 20%, I think it's around 17% of people stay prescribed for even over a year. And that's because, look, there are trade-offs to these things. They're highly symptomatic a lot of times. And then as we talked about before, I think just people just don't want to be reliant on these things. They know they know they've been studied and FDA approved, but they haven't been studied when you use them for 20 years or, whatever. And plus it's, obviously not a fun experience of paying for it and injecting yourself. What I think is helpful for Veracity is that these drug companies are spending a ton of money marketing and educating people on two major components. One, that weight loss is not a willpower game. There are biological chemical imbalances that really do affect people's ability to consume the right amount of calories in a way that's healthy for their body. And that's because of a lot of factors, but like the three main ones that I always like to talk about are environmental toxins, things like microplastic, endocrine disrupting chemicals, et cetera, that you breathe in the air that you really can't avoid. Our ultra processed food system, about 70% of the food we take, even when we think we're being healthy, is ultra processed, and that literally rewires our bodies, our hormonal systems, our blood sugar regulation systems. And then the third is our lives and our modern lives and the stress that we induce and the ways we mess up our circadian rhythms. Like it's just literally changing the signals that our body is sending. So one, they're educating it's not just diet, exercise, and willpower. You do need help, and that is helpful for us and has gotten people what I like to call like Ozempic curious. So even people who would never actually go to a doctor or ask for a prescription are saying, wow, I've been doing it the hard way and it's not working. There must be something for me. And that's how they often kind of find us. And then the second, which I think is still nascent in it, but is that weight management should be a lifelong commitment because it is our most important factor in longevity and all-cause mortality. Like the data is very, very clear on that. And as you see with the GLP-1, it works as long as you stay on it. Obviously, people don't want to stay on it, but I think what that turns in and what I'm personally trying to achieve with Veracity is this. Everything in weight management is temporary, even healthy things like Whole30, for example. We're trained to say, I just do this for a certain amount of time. I get to my goal weight and then it stops. And that's not the case. If we want to actually invest in our metabolic health and well-being, it has to be a lifelong commitment and lifelong journey. And you have to use the tools that are going to help you get there. And I think that is why people are finding Veracity for maybe those immediate benefits like weight loss and energy, but they're staying on it because they realize that it's actually great for that maintenance and long-term metabolic health piece.
So you're saying that when I ate a whole pizza as a celebration of finishing my Whole30, that wasn't the way that it was intended?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But probably fun.
Yeah. I felt terrible, to be honest. But maybe to push on a little bit harder, like, how do you break through the noise of, okay, there's big ad budgets or influencers supporting the fashionization and even the metabolic space, or, hey, I'm just want to do the injection because it seems like narcotics are stronger. Like, how much education do you have to drive to get someone down the funnel?
Sure. It's actually way less than you think. As you and I met a while ago, like I started my business with, a broader functional health perspective. We were treating all areas of sort of functional hormonal health, including some weight management, but even, acne and eczema and hair loss and things like that. And honestly, there was a lot of education and trying to target people's symptoms, explain that they're driven by internal factors, that they needed to know what those internal factors factors were. And then once they knew what they were able to put a plan together to achieve those. As we saw the insight to sort of develop, we spent about a year developing our hero product, Metabolism Ignite. And as we then launched that product, we've seen actually way less education, because the beautiful thing about it is that weight management, weight loss, energy, these are benefits that are so clearly understood and so highly prioritized by people, that if you can establish that you have a product that actually has real credibility behind it, there's a lot of, and you don't have to do a lot of push. There's a lot of pull that quickly comes from that. But look, we're not as flashy as a celebrity-backed brand that's going to pop out of the gate, but we are taking the bet that in the end, again, the efficacy and trust is what matters. And I think where people see the difference in Veracity is a few factors. One, I have an authentic story. I had a metabolic disease that led me to creating Veracity in the first place, that I've actually resolved naturally through supplementation and lifestyle changes. No longer have to take a prescription drug. We're backed by a team of 11 doctors who create content for us, not paid, tell the story of it. And I think, we see at least from our data, people trust doctors and sort of medical professionals about 5x more than they do influencers. So that's a unique advantage for us in telling that story in the right way. And then the third point I would say is the push for natural and safe is not just a fringe sort of I like to call it gemstones and crystals kind of wellness movement. It is crossing party lines. It's Democratic, it's Republican. You see it with Maha and people just really questioning now their own health and safety. And maybe it was partly, super accelerated with COVID. But I think across the board, people really want to take more ownership and management of their health.
Really interesting that you had this evolution from kind of multi-product. There was, like you mentioned, more education, and there was a different onboarding, which maybe you can talk about regarding kind of panel testing, and the business was going and it was coming along. But then you had this hero SKU that just took off, and then the growth the last couple of years has been incredible. I've actually seen this now a few times more recently, including we had Hudson from Plant People come on and talk about how it was SKU tightening and a little bit of product iteration that was a huge game changer for them, because they were able to put more marketing dollars behind a specific SKU.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Maybe can you talk about that story?
Yeah. So just as brief background, I started the business because I had undiagnosed Hashimoto's disease, which is an autoimmune metabolic thyroid disorder. I only learned about it when I was going through infertility, was kind of casually diagnosed with it, put on our prescription medication, started on IVF. 3 years later, still not pregnant, and really started to dig into my own health. And that's how I found functional medicine, how I was able to actually get pregnant, have my 2 children, and also eventually reverse my Hashimoto's disease. So, my whole premise was, how do I bring root cause medicine to more people? And it was really through this lens of more aesthetic health and the problems that people are experiencing every day and spending money and time on. How do you bring that earlier in the journey? So our initial go-to-market was, people need to understand what's going on in their body. And so we created this original at-home hormone test, is a saliva test, makes it super easy for people to really understand at a high level what's going on in their body. And we launched that back in 2021, honestly, to great success. We had over a 5,000 person waiting list. We spent no digital marketing in the beginning. But then as we started to scale that business, I would say we noticed that the price of education was a lot higher, right? And really we were helping so many people sort of open that Pandora's box of health. But because our diagnostic is relatively high level and, we weren't offering care, then we may not be able to fully serve those people through their holistic journey. And quite honestly, like this was, from the heyday of consumer investing in 2020 to then, we weren't going to be able to raise money. And nor should we have. To be honest, I think a lot of businesses had been thrown way, way too much money for things that, aren't good businesses. And I wanted to create a good business. I wanted to solve this consumer problem, but I also want to create a good business. And so what we found through our initial product assortment was if we started acquiring people not through the diagnostic, but directly through the product sort of symptom treatment, and then upsell them to the diagnostic to go further, that was actually a much better business model because you didn't have as much of the education friction or even the time friction of someone taking the diagnostic, getting it back, then converting to product. You already started them solving their issue and then could kind of help them dig in a little bit deeper. But in that transition for us as a business, I looked at my assortment and I said, we have amazing products. So we have invested a lot of money into building in the R&D side, but we don't have a hero. We have kind of a collection of things. And I've been a brand builder, my career, worked at Estee Lauder companies, La Mer, Clinique, and Origins, and was CEO of a fashion business in Theoralia before. So I knew you need to have something that you're known for to build a sustainable brand. And so we looked at both our existing product portfolio and then also said, what are their clients asking us for? What do they telling us their symptoms are? And what is their biological data, the data that was coming out of the test? What is that telling us? And that really pointed to this area of weight management and metabolic health. And so we spent about a year. We rolled back the business at the time. We stopped spending money on marketing. We really took our time to say we need to make this capital last. Built Metabolism Ignite and launched that. And thought it would be like sort of a hero part of the assortment. But it honestly quickly overtook the entire business. And I honestly, as an entrepreneur, I think I use that as an opportunity to say, you have this grand vision and you can see it. You can see it, from now to way further in the future than you'd like to admit. But then you have to put that out into the world and see what the world takes from that. And so, it was clear to me that the world was taking, our metabolic health. And I saw why don't we use this as an opportunity to really go deeper in that space and offer, quality products, care, content, et cetera, and really build that, here beyond a hero product, but really a hero platform for solving this huge problem. And that's what we decided to do and transition the business to.
Cards on the table. Your tech stack is held together with duct tape and prayers. If you're a brand founder or COO juggling Shopify, your 3PL portal, 3 different inventory trackers, and yes, that one crucial Google Sheet, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Orders get lost, inventory counts are fiction, and your seamless integrations break every other Tuesday. Endless Commerce changes the game. One platform for everything. D2C, wholesale, marketplaces, the works. AI-powered forecasting, real-time inventory visibility, and integrations that actually integrate. Teams like Great Jones, Food 52, and Pattern Brands already made the switch. So ready to ditch the chaos? Visit endlesscommerce.com. Mention me or In the Money when you reach out and get 3 months free. Because your ops stack should be your competitive advantage, not your biggest headache. There'll be a lot of people that are listening to this thinking about SKU trimming or tightening the assortment and being nervous that, hey, I'm going to be leaving revenue on the table, declining revenue. Did you go through those thoughts yourself of hey, if we go all in on this, what happens if we decline?
Yeah, I think it's always scary. But and it's probably the lesson that you shared is, particularly in early stage businesses, first of all, you got to get good at doing something. And the more things you have to do, the harder it is to get good at. So if you're really trying to sell 1, 2 things, you can get really good at it because you're just only focused on that. And as much as you think a brand in, whatever space within consumer, these products are related, they're both beauty products or they're both supplements or whatever, they're different, and people are buying them for different reasons, etc. So I definitely went through that a little bit. And it's scary because your best customers are always the people who buy multiple things, and you're like, oh my goodness, I'm like taking stuff away from them. But we really try to approach it from a place of honesty and like referring people to other brands that we vetted and trusted and said, for example, we had a progesterone boosting product that we used to sell, and we would now refer people to like another Vitex chaseberry product that we knew the manufacturing standards behind that. And I think that actually ended up reinforcing things. But I will say, don't be afraid of that, because really there's so much more to be gained on the other side. I mean, we had a topical line of products as well as ingestibles, and we discontinued the entire thing. And I think more of me was sad because I'm a personal lover and user of those. But we just really wanted the opportunity to focus and build trust in the space where we saw the brand, really leading and evolving.
Things have gone so well that earlier this year, you raised a round of funding from two tier one consumer investors. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that, and even more so the kind of capital markets of growth equity investing. And there's been chatter of the pullback the last 30 months or so. Yeah, what is it like out there?
Yeah, it's wild. It's I think I could write a book one day, starting the company in 2020 to like literally the heyday of consumer investing to now. So obviously expectations for consumer businesses have changed dramatically since when I started the company. And I think, being honest with people about that, I talk to entrepreneurs all the time, and I think you really have to have compelling product market fit and a real business case need for capital as well. And I will say, like, having experienced both sides of it, there's always ways that you can tell yourself you have product market fit. Um, and think it, and there might be signs like, but I've come to be a much bigger believer in like, if you have product market fit, it's freaking obvious. Like, and if you don't, then, it's fine. Keep iterating, maybe raise capital in that way or controlled way, etc. But don't try to go for the big, thing, because, it's just not right. And you can iterate to get to something, but it should, when you hit that initial product market fit, it should actually feel kind of easy. Like nothing's easy and what have you. So that was the evolution that we found. And I think it made raising capital much easier because the numbers stood by it. But what I will say is, I talked to, I don't know how many investors throughout the process, but even with a great business with like very, very compelling, financials, you will talk to people and you will get drastically different reactions to what you have. I would have some people telling me, you need to diversify your product mix. Other people telling me I needed to cut every single other SKU. And I think my biggest learning has been, your customer and your opportunity better than any investor will. And, part of the strength you need to build and as an entrepreneur when these capital markets environments in particular is that confidence in getting to hear a lot of people critique or tell you what's right for your business, and maybe take some of it in as good learnings, but also say, I'm going to use this as just a data point in my set of data points that I'm collecting about making the right decisions. And then the last thing I would say in this front, and something I feel very, very lucky to have, is like, you're kind of instructed as an entrepreneur to, go to the best venture capital firms or, look at their existing portfolios and target people based on that. And I would say be less concerned about whatever you put on paper in advance and be more concerned with the conversations that you're having and understanding like most consumer investors are already going to have had a thesis on the major categories within consumer. And you don't want to be aligning or trying to convince someone of your thesis that might be different or, even adjacent to theirs. You want to find someone where it's a perfect match and you don't even have to do any of the convincing, because that's just going to set you up for success in fundraising, in getting the best valuation possible, and then in really setting up a partnership for growing. That's you feel like you're on the same page with your investors.
If you're like most founders, supply chain is probably one of those things you just deal with because you have to, not because you love it, and not because you're an expert. If you spend hours chasing suppliers, negotiating tiny price breaks, trying to figure out if delays were real or just another excuse, you probably want to pay attention to this next bit. Move Supply Chain is a team out of the Philippines I've been working with, and they've saved me hours I didn't know I could get back. They handle the messy stuff: sourcing, supplier vetting, negotiations, tracking, and even inventory planning. They've helped D2C brands I know lock in better MOQs, negotiate stronger supplier terms, and make smarter decisions with working capital. What do I like most? They don't give you a deck and disappear. They actually embed you with ops and fix things that are slowing you down. Now here, a bonus for listeners. They're offering a risk-free 4-week trial. You can use code INTHEMONEY to get a discounted rate if you want to test them out. Anyway, if Q4 is starting to feel a little too close for comfort, check them out. It's one less thing to deal with, one more thing you can upgrade to an expert level. Website's movesupplychain.com. That's movesupplychain.com. And so with your two investors, Mavron and Melitas, was it, I assume the answer is both, but was it more, hey, look at this market pull for Metabolism Ignite? Or was it more what you said of, hey, this natural path for natural GLP-1 production is the exact thing that we've been thinking about and kind of looking for, and we're so glad you put the financials to kind of back it up?
Like it's mostly the latter, actually. Like so Mavra and I had known for quite a while. And they had a whole sort of white paper on deprescription and how it plays out in the GLP-1 space. And it was funny because when we met, I was like, literally, this is like, we're the manifestation of this white paper. And I think that's what created just that has created a really great, partnership for us. And it's also helped us because they've done a lot of raw consumer research. They've made a lot of relationships in this space that now we're able to leverage.
And in this period of tremendous growth and this incredible funding milestone, is there a kind of single biggest win in the last 12 months that you look back on, product, channel, campaign, something else?
Two things. I would say one, the guts to make the decision that we already talked about. I'm very proud of that ability to do that and to not be so stuck in my ways and my vision, but to really go where the consumer and client was leading us. And then the second is my team. A woman on my team who's sort of our number two, she literally started the day that we launched Metabolism Ignite. So I just, map her trajectory with our revenue growth and it perfectly aligns. And of course, obviously, could we have had the same success without her? Potentially. But her and the other members of the team really are what have driven this forward. And I feel very lucky to work with the team I get to work with. And, part of this funding is just what enables us to build a world-class team of people who can help us continue to execute with excellence.
Speaking of teams, there's been, I think across industries, but certainly in consumer, this push for teams to be more efficient with AI. Is that something that Veracity is talking about internally of, hey, we're going to be mindful of headcount growth. We should be kind of AI native in our operations and thinking?
Yeah, I think you'd be silly not to be thinking about AI in the right way. We're a content forward brand and business, and there's so much that AI enables you to do with content, which is so exciting. And I think there's so many sort of labor hours that can be adjusted because of that. And it also helps us in the creative process. Like you kind of have some initial ideas. What I've also seen it really be super helpful for me, even at the CEO level, is like competitive research. You give it a few good prompts, and you kind of, it's not perfect. It wouldn't get an A at, Harvard, but like you get a kind of mini research report that allows you to kind of have a good view. I will say that great businesses and brands are really going to have excellent people on the other side of all those things to implement, because having people know when things are chatbots and they don't want that experience. And even in this whole conversation around like SEO going from Google to AI, ultimately my view and our view is that quality is what is going to win. And there's ways of gaming the system. But what you really have to be producing is quality content and authority. And so that's, something that we're investing in. Obviously with AI tools, understanding like what are the queries and making sure we design things, but actually doing original research, leveraging our medical team to provide insights to the questions that people are really asking.
And are there opportunities, things that you're really excited about the next 12 to 18 months, Veracity? Again, maybe it's a channel expansion, maybe it's product, anything kind of on the tech side, tactically?
Yes, so many things. But I would say what I'm very excited about in this space of really owning and creating this category of metabolic health is some of the product assortment that we will have coming out to continue to support that. We're taking a year plus to develop these products. And really, I see a huge opportunity for us in really rewriting the category in the aisle of weight management, which if you go to a CVS or a Target today, walk down the weight management aisle, and you will look like it's like a blast from the past. You're like seeing Slim Fast and Boost and Hydroxycut and, just caffeine stimulants and toxins galore. And I'm really excited about being able to use real root cause driven science to sort of rewrite that aisle and opportunity, and then really build the bigger education piece around like what is metabolic health beyond weight management, because there's so much more to it. But that's the education piece that I would say we're sort of taking the long view on.
Allie, as we head towards a wrap, is there anything that you're looking for from listeners, collaborators, medical partners, channel partners to help accelerate Veracity's next phase?
Well, I think it's really my personal goal is if you can start, like if everybody thinks about their own personal health stack, and what they're using to support themselves or what is taking away from that, that is really helping, create our mission. And so, as other people hear this and sort of have that like-minded nature of wanting to actually solve and support, our bodies and the problems that we encounter, we are super excited to collaborate and build, partnerships in that space. Like, one of our bigger marketing efforts is we have a big community of health coach affiliates. So these are real folks who work one-on-one with people trying to like help them develop personalized nutrition and, movement and sleep and stress management, et cetera. And that has been a really valuable experience for us to be able to like really learn so directly from real people and clients, but also collaborate, with people who see the bigger vision of trying to, address root cause solutions.
Allie, thanks so much for coming on and look forward to next time.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Great to see you.